Thank you for listening to Christ Alone podcast, where we believe that Jesus lived, died, and resurrected according to the scriptures.
Our hope is that God can bless you through this week's episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Angie and Steven's podcast, Christ Alone podcast. I'm your host, Angie, and my co-host, Stevens. That sounds weird. He is Marine to me, but my co-host is out sick. So everybody at home has been sick for the last week or so. They are getting better, but if you could all just keep him and his family, the girls and my sister-in-law, in your prayers so they would continue to get better and be able to just get back to school and to work this week. We know that God is healer and He is in control. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Our topic for today, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about singleness. We're going to talk about online dating. We're going to talk about relationships. So we're going to jump right in. So not sure if you know, I have talked about it before, but I was single for a long time. Well, at least it felt that way. I never had a boyfriend throughout my teenage years and throughout my 20s. My fiance, Matthew Hill, which is he's an amazing man, and I'm blessed to have him in my life. He actually was my first boyfriend, and he is now my fiance. We are to wed in March, so if you could keep us in your prayers, that God would just be in control of just all the planning that goes involved with that, and that He would just bless our relationship. But anyways, I was single for a while, and it was a huge struggle to see everyone around me get into relationships. You know, my closest friends, my family members, all getting into relationships, and I was just there, and I felt, honestly, there was a lot of times I felt kind of invisible. So I knew that I wanted someone who loved the Lord, and I wanted someone who loved me, right? And so a lot of times I would find someone who, might be interested in me, but they didn't really love the Lord. Or honestly, I would find someone who I would, see people or come across people who seemed to love the Lord, and they really weren't interested in me. So there are different scenarios. In any case, I was just single for a while, and honestly, it became more and more difficult as I got older. I guess the story I told myself while I was in school was, hey, I'm in school, I'll focus on relationships once I'm done with school, right? So that was the story that I gave myself when I was at Valencia, getting my associates, then getting my bachelor's, then getting my master's. Once I'm done, then I can focus on the relationship. But honestly, I was just, waiting for God to bring me that guy, and it became, even more of a struggle. It became a bigger struggle once I finished school, and that wasn't my excuse anymore. And I still couldn't find someone. I guess part of my hope was that, God would at some time bring someone to church, and, we'd see each other across the room and fall in love, and that would be it. But that didn't happen. One of the reasons because that didn't happen is because I also attended a pretty small church, which I still attend to today. Shout out to MCJ Church. But yeah, it's been a pretty small church for a while, and so that never happened. And so as the years progressed, especially as I got older in my 20s, I got more and more frustrated. And I remember many times just crying out to God and just honestly praying. And honestly, there are times that I would say, hey, God, it's not fair that I don't have someone. Like, I honestly felt like I was, invisible a lot of times, because I would see people get into these Christian relationships, and I'm like, where is mine? God, I'm going to church. I'm trying to serve you. I'm trying to do, my very best. And why haven't I found my person? And I think the big thing that I would say for those of you that are in a season of singleness is that it is very important that you take that season and you enjoy that season, and you make it a priority to put God in your relationship, okay? Because this is a time where you're able to find out who you are, which is a big thing, and also you're able to find your identity and make your identity in Christ. I think it's very important to have, at any point in your life, at every point, it's important that prayer and reading the Word and following all those Christian disciplines, all that is important at all points in your life, but it's especially important, in your singleness, right? Because you make it so God becomes your number one. And so basically God becomes the person that you go to. He becomes a person that you fall in love with first. There was one point in my life where I remember I was driving my car and I was, frustrated with God, and I'm like, God, where's my person? Why haven't I found them? And, why can't, I be loved? And in prayer, God reminded me, hey, I love you. And that's the most important love that we need to know. I think sometimes what we do and what society teaches us to do is that relationships should be, finding that person is the most important thing. And honestly, it's not. The most important thing is that you have God and that you have a relationship with Him, because God is love, and He is the truth is that we have a love-shaped hole in our heart, and the only one who could fill that hole is God. Because what you'll find if you're single is, even if you're in a relationship, that person is not going to fill that hole. It might put a band-aid over it for a little bit, but eventually you're going to get to a point where you realize, hey, this relationship is not enough to for some reason I still feel an emptiness in my heart. So I can tell you, I was single for a while, but I am so thankful that I went through that season, because in that season I learned to depend so much on God. I learned to have a relationship with God. I fell in love with God, and it was huge, because I remember one time I was praying, and again, having this conversation. Listen, if you're single and you're frustrated, tell God your frustrations. The same with if you're in any trouble that you're facing right now. If you're frustrated with God, the big thing is to come before God. I was listening to something that Dr. Tim Keller said in one of his preachings, and he was basically talking about the story of Job. And in understanding the story of Job, he saw that although Job, he spends a lot of time complaining, the biggest thing that we should take away from the story of Job is that although he's complaining, Job is complaining to God. Job is bringing his frustrations to God. So that is super important. So if whatever you're frustrated with God about, bring it to Him. Bring it to Him. And in doing so, listen, you have to understand that God is a loving Father, and He wants you to bring that to Him, because He's the one that can carry it. He's the one that can bring healing. He's the one that can bring answers, and He's the one who's going to build your character through it all. So that is my main point. That although I did go through a long season of singleness, it's in that season that God used that season to build my character and to build my relationship with Him. Because there was one point, like I was saying earlier, one point where I was praying to God about, finding the right person, and something that I felt Him tell me in my heart is, but I was like, God, I want to fall in love. And He's like, but I want you to fall in love with me first. You hear in the love stories that, he's supposed to make you weak. The guy that you fall in love with, that is Prince Charming, is supposed to make your knees weak. And God's like, I want to make your knees weak. I want to just have you fall in love with me first. I want to make your heart race first. I want to I want that love to be for me first. And I found that like there were times where I was before God's presence, and my knees were shaking just because I knew that He was there. And there have been times where I have felt the weight of God's love in my heart, like that time that I talked about earlier about being in my car. And He's like, I want to do those things for you first. So if you're experiencing a season of singleness, just know that God wants to build your character, because it's so easy, like I said earlier, it's so easy in today's society to make that person your God. It's so easy to make that relationship your God. But the truth is that that person isn't meant to be God. God created relationships. He created marriage. He created, man and woman to be together so that could reflect our relationship with God. It's supposed to be a shadow of something that is much, much, much greater. It's supposed to be a covenant that is a shadow of a greater covenant that He has made with us. And so it's very important to take that time of singleness to be in a relationship with Him. And I just encourage you to express your frustrations with Him, and trust that He does have a plan for you. One verse, a couple verses that were encouraging to me were Jeremiah 29:11, that talks about that His plans, I know the plans that I have for you, and they are good plans. And so trusting that God's plans for you are great, and that He is a good God, and He is a God of love, and He has good things for you, and things that will glorify Him. And in the process of getting those things, He'll build your character in the midst of it. Another verse that's probably been the most encouraging verse is Isaiah 60:22, where God says, at the right time, I will make it happen. We live in a society where we want things right now, immediately, right? It's fast food, it's fast internet, it's fast everything. But God doesn't work like that. He knows the perfect time for everything. And he knows when it will be best to give you that thing that you're asking for, if that thing that you're asking for will be good for you, and will glorify Him. So I encourage you to, if you're struggling with waiting for anything, whether that be your person, whether that be Him to answer any prayer, for healing, for whatever it may be, write that verse, memorize that verse, Isaiah 60:22. At the right time, I will make it happen. So that was singleness. I'm sure there's a lot more I can say about it, but I do want to go on into the next point I want to talk about is online dating. So I can tell you that, actually, let me go back a second. So one thing that was very difficult as I progressed through my 20s in singleness is people's comments, honestly. So as I got older, once I passed 25, I remember in one case, I was talking to someone and they asked me my age, and at that point I was 26, and they kind of made a face and said, "And you're 26 and you're still not with someone, you're still not dating any," and it just hurt. It hurt to hear that. And as I got older, I got different comments like that, people wanting to people also making suggestions of what I should do, because obviously it seemed to them like, there was an issue that they could fix, maybe something I hadn't considered. And I know in a lot of cases, it maybe was out of love, but I can tell you that it was often hurtful to just feel like, I was being told that something was wrong with me because my biological clock was ticking, and I was slowly getting to an age where I could not bear children, or healthy children, I guess. I don't know. It's just I can tell you it was hurtful. So if you are that person who is single, I just encourage you to lean into God, And if people are making those comments in your life, I encourage you to tell them, how it affects you and how it hurts you, especially if it's people that are close. I can tell you, thankfully, my best friends, my closest friends, they weren't putting that pressure on me. It was other people that were making those comments. So make sure you are surrounding yourself with the right people. And also, if people that are close to you are making those comments, express to them how it makes you feel. Because at the same time, it goes back to, it's God's timing and not yours. Hey, there's a lot of people that start dating in their teenage years and they get married to those people. There's a lot of people who start dating in their 20s and start, get married to those people. But there are also a lot of people who find people in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, that find someone later on in life. But just because you are at a certain age and you still haven't found someone, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with you. God still loves you. He's still watching out for you. He has a good plan for you. I just want to encourage you. I apologize. I guess getting caught up in my feelings here. Anyways, so yes. And on the other hand, if you are someone who hasn't found their person and you have people in your life that are single, just understand that. Just try to understand their position. I encourage you to pray for, your friends who are single, and, before trying to, before offering them advice or trying to, hook them up with somebody else, ask them if they are okay with it. But yeah, just understand that it is not an easy season for them. And to be told, especially for a woman, I think honestly it happens mostly for women, to be told that our biological clock is ticking is very hurtful. So I would just encourage you to pray for them and ask God, how you can love on them better. Anyway, so next we're going to go on to thoughts on online dating. So I will say that I think it went through my mind for a few years. Like, God, should I try online dating? Should I not try online dating? So I can tell you that one thing I did do, I finally decided to do it as I got closer to 30, because again, I was being told that my biological clock is ticking, and for whatever reason, 30 is that scary year. If you haven't found anyone, for whatever reason, I guess that's what society teaches us. But anyways, I decided to try it. I did pray about it. I'm like, God, if this is not right, because I wasn't sure about it. I wasn't sure how God felt about it. I'm like, well, am I outside God's will? Am I trying to, I guess, play God by trying online dating? So I prayed about it, and then I tried it. I was trying Christian apps. I was trying, I think I tried one Christian app, and then I had heard of a friend who met someone through Facebook dating, and so I tried Facebook dating. Again, I was praying, God, if this is your will. I was going through the different profiles, praying, and I can tell you this: I don't think that online dating is wrong. I think we live in time where people are all caught up in their phones and caught up in themselves, and so there's this, I don't know, it's a new time where people are focused more on communicating with someone over the phone than they are with someone in front of them. So that is a bit unfortunate, that people don't, it's not common for a guy to come up to a girl and say, hey, how you doing, or something like that. Or if it is common, it's more common in bars, which if you are a Christian, you're not going to find yourself, I would assume you wouldn't find yourself going to bars or places like that. So I don't think online dating is a sin. The question is, when you are on these apps, like, what are you looking for? Because I can tell you, as someone who wanted to honor God, who wanted to find someone who loved the Lord, my first thing in looking at these profiles was looking for someone who mentioned Christ in their profile. Like, I was just going through apps. Obviously, you want to find someone who's attractive. People who say that attraction is important. I think you want to be attracted to that person. But, in their profiles, I was looking for someone who loved Christ. Now, I will say there are some cases, to my previous note, where you're not immediately attracted to that person, but throughout getting to know them and their, you become attracted to them. So there are some exceptions to that rule. Anyways, but I do think attraction is important. But yeah, so I was looking for someone who loved the Lord, and or someone who said that. So I can tell you, and if you've tried online dating, you can probably attest to this. There are a lot of people that on their profile will say good vibes only, which, I mean, that's nice, I guess. There were, but I think I avoided those. There was some that said 420 friendly, which I 100% avoided those, because I mean, what's the deal with 420? I was gonna try to make a joke about how I thought it was a time, but it doesn't. It's not gonna work. So 420, obviously, people who are interested in like smoking weed, and if you're trying to honor God, then that being sober-minded is important. And people who smoke and people who are alcoholics, you can't be sober-minded when you are drunk or smoking. So anyway, so not looking for those things. So I was specifically looking for someone who loved Jesus. Now, the question is, will it always work? No. So from what I've read, from what I've heard of other people, there are people who will put something Christian on their profiles, or use a Christian website, Christian app, but once you meet them, you realize that they have a very loose definition of what Christian means, which is, vast majority of people will say that they're Christian and actually have never stepped foot, or will only go to church on Easter and Christmas. And so it doesn't, it's not just finding someone who says Jesus on their profile. It's after doing that, it's looking for certain qualities in them. Now, I was blessed enough that the first person that I talked to was Matthew, and God made it work out. It was part of his will, so I'm very thankful for that. But I understand, like I said, that's not always the case. So the question is, when you find someone, whether that be online or not, what are the qualities to look for in trying to find that right person? And the first one, of course, is, do they love the Lord? Like whether they've said they're Christian or not on their profile or in person, do they actually love the Lord? Did they have a relationship with God before meeting you? Because the Bible tells us, like I said earlier, and it's probably one of my favorite verses about husbands and wives, is husbands, and it's in, actually I'll tell you the verse because I have it right here. It's Ephesians 5:25, says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word." So because the Bible tells us that husbands are supposed to love their wives as Christ loves the church, it's fair to say that a man cannot love his wife as Christ loved the church if he doesn't know Christ. So does his person know Christ? Did he know them before they met you? Now, I think this is the trickiest part for many people, because I'll ask people who are Christian and have started a new relationship, and these are typically people from my youth, or just people in my life. I'll ask them that I know, and I know they're Christian. First thing I'll ask them is, do they love Christ? Are they Christian? And oftentimes, honestly, I will hear something along the lines of, I don't know. So I'll ask, do they know Christ? They'll say, I don't know. Listen, if you don't know, you know. That's all I'm gonna, like, that, I mean, if you don't know, you know, okay? Because if someone loves Christ, they're gonna show it. Like, it's gonna be part of what, it's gonna just come out of them. You know, it's gonna be part of that conversation. It's like when something great happens in your life, you have to tell people about it. Like, it's like, if I mean, it's just, I can give 1,000 examples of that. Like, when you get a new job, you have to tell people about it. When you know, if you find out you're pregnant, you have to tell people about it. You know, fill in the blank. You know, part of, I read, I think it was, not sure if it was Piper or C.S. Lewis, that was talking about, I think it might have been C.S. Lewis, that joy is basically complete when we are able to share it. When something good happens, we just have to share it. So my point being, if you don't know, you know. Okay? If you don't know, you know. So yeah, you need to find someone who loves Jesus. Now, I knew Matthew loved Jesus because of his testimony, because of how he talked about God in the Bible, because how he would bring up God in conversations without me initiating it, because he would pray for me, and he continues to pray for me. So in this relationship, if you're in one already, is prayer a part of your relationship? You know, there's a statistic that we've all heard, that 50% of marriages and in divorce, well, there's this new statistic that I've heard of from multiple sources, that less than 1% of people who pray together every single day end in divorce. So when God becomes the center of that relationship, then the probability of that marriage ending in divorce, you know, goes down by a lot. So do they love Christ? And like I said, if you don't know, you know. And if you're not sure if they do, then it's important to, you know, obviously spend time with them. I think you get to know whether or not they do by spending time with them. And also, what do the people closest to them say about him? You know, because I think, number one, the people that they choose to surround themselves with says a lot about who they are. So I can tell you, in my case, Matthew's closest friends are people who love the Lord. And what I love, one thing I love about Matthew is that he has a good amount of friends that are, you know, a little bit older than him. So later on in life, have, you know, older kids or grandkids already. And so I like about him, but they love the Lord, and obviously he has people in his life that are his age, and they love the most important people in his life love the Lord. And I can tell you that obviously conversations about Matthew came up when we first started dating, and a few things stuck out to me about what they said. So in one case, the couple that I stay with, when I go over to Missouri, because, you know, waiting for to have sex until marriage is super important, which I don't think we'll get to talk about today. But the couple that I stay with over there, there was that first time that I met them. I can tell you there was one time that Matthew walked away. I think he went to use the restroom, and then in that time I asked them, you know, about Matthew, and one thing that they said is he has a heart of gold. And over time I've gotten to know this couple well, and I know that they truly believe he has a heart of gold. And obviously over time of me getting to know Matthew, I have trust. I know the same about him. In another case, he, you know, another friend of his talked about how, you know, they needed help with getting the new floors into their house, and they talked about how there were two people there. It was Matthew and some other guy, and that other guy left quickly, and Matthew stayed there until 2 a.m. And that just stood out to me, because that tells me a lot about his character, that he has a heart to serve, and he does have that heart of gold. So what do the people closest to him say about him? And obviously, in spending time with that person, you're going to get to know whether or not they're exhibiting the fruits of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit. And you can only tell that by getting, being in a relationship with that person. But yeah, so there was a lot more to say, but I guess we can leave a lot of that for another episode. But yeah, so today we focused more about singleness and also online dating and some qualities to look for in that person that you want to spend your life with. Another really quick thing that I do want to say is what is their goal? Like, is their goal in dating for marriage, or what is it for? Because if they are a Christian, if they love the Lord, then their purpose in dating is to marry. And that's super important. A lot of people out there are now just, dating to date, or dating to have sex, or dating to, I don't know, fill in the blank. But their purpose should be to date to get married. Okay? So that's what I'll leave with you guys for today. I didn't expect to say that much about that little, but I guess there is a lot to say. You can find us at ChristAlonePodcast.com. All of our handles are Christ Alone Podcast, except for Twitter or X, which is Christ Alone Pod. For questions, suggestions, or prayer requests, call or text 407-796-2881. You can find us at www.linktr.ee/ChristAlone. This podcast is listener supported, and if God puts it in your heart to help this podcast out with a one-time gift or a monthly gift, please follow the link. We love you guys. God bless. I hope that this episode blesses you. And if we don't see you next week, we'll see you in the clouds. God bless.